What was that?
Perfect. You want to see that guy?
Wow. Welcome to Conspiracy Theory Friday and Brandon's very interesting studio rearrangements.
You'll never know.
I mean, he's got the jacket on and everything.
I'm jacked up today, really.
Welcome to DCTV, everybody. It is Conspiracy Theory Friday. We are looking at a couple of things. One of them being Sam Bankman-Fried finally maybe conceding and showing up to the hearing on Tuesday, which, by the way, we're going to be live for all day long. So we hope that you guys are here. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button, hit the like and that notification bell to get notified when we go live. When that takes place. Looking at the market right now, S&P futures are down around 0.5%. That's after they were hella green this morning on the back of some inflation numbers that just weren't great. Food numbers, the price of food went up much higher than what people were expecting, and so that's why we're seeing the drop off here. Dow's down 88 points, Nasdaq's down 1/3%. Crude oil actually has popped up now, sitting back at around 72.78 per barrel. And now looking at Bitcoin, that also dropped off on this inflation news, largely because we're seeing the inflation numbers and the possibility that the Fed may not budge on interest rate hikes is kind of got investors spooked right now. So if you guys haven't checked that out, we can talk about that in a second. But what are your guys' thoughts on the sudden move down? Don Fran of the Don Fran Show, what you got to say about that?
I think we're pricing in, or I think we're going to start moving down, like a full-blown leg down. Because right now, this morning, we actually dropped down to 2 standard deviations, and we currently pop back up. So we'll see. If we don't have the most bullish Friday ever and rein that back in, I think what they ended up pricing in is the next leg down, no matter what they say next week, whether it's 50 points, 25 points, 75. Looks like it might just be red in general. Unless, if we want to talk about conspiracies, they were just lowering it down because they wanted cheap calls for the play next week. But I actually think this is the beginning of the next leg down. The way we moved this week was supposed to be a nothing week. This news isn't much. It's nothing. They moved it down a couple times. And the way we went if we go down further, it'd be 3 standard deviations down. Those are the big players going short or getting out long. And that would be trouble for anyone that thinks they should be bullish.
Yeah. So if you guys didn't check this out, the news here is that we were expected to see core PPI numbers, which excludes food and energy, that rose 4.4% last month, topping the estimate of 0.2%. So essentially double what the expectation was. This comes as investors brace for next week's busy economic calendar, as Don was saying, and we'll hear about CPI. And usually, or at least lately, we've been seeing CPI numbers match that of PPI. So I think that there's some truth to that, Don. I think because we're seeing the higher PPI numbers or producer price index numbers, that the consumer price index numbers may end up being even worse off than what we were expecting there as well, which could cause some movement from the Fed to the hawkish side. And I think that's probably going to continue to spook investors. And I would say that you're probably spot on with that.
So obviously, I'm kind of like unmute.
Unmute John. What's up, dude?
I haven't. I can mute myself. I know it's because I'm right now traveling in a hotel and it's breakfast time, like literally right to left of me. So, but yeah, I would prepare for that, and it's actually making me think how do I want to handle things, because I have a lot of plays that I just sell calls on, and I had planned on just letting some of those exercise to get rid of some shares and lighten some stuff up. They're down, so another week of just free money. But now it's making me think, do I want to aggressively play this, or do I want to just trim a couple of those positions and then get back in, Tesla being one of them? I think Tesla and Apple right now, they they just have too much meat on the bones. They're sticking out way too much. When you just look at charts in general, very blanket statement. Look at everything. It's kind of back to the Rona highs or even below, and then you just got Tesla and Apple. If you looked at just Tesla and Apple, you couldn't tell me the markets were crashed. I know Tesla's down a lot considering what its highs
I
were,
was going
but
to say Tesla's down 50% from year to date. So
yeah, but I don't care. Look where the Rona crash is at on that. See that down there in your lower left? That's where the Rona crash was at. Now, if you compare every other ticker to that, look at Meta, Google, Amazon, all the other big ones, all the small ones. Apple and Tesla look like that. They look like they are still in the clouds compared to everything else. So I worry if if the quants are going to attack it, what the excuse would be. There's just a lot of liquidity in there because when it comes to I'm going to short this market, there's Google, there's Peloton, which is just fun to talk about. But there's all those ones like do you really want to keep shorting those? Like how much lower do they go before those really are cheap? Versus like how much meat is on the bones for Apple and Tesla? Do they really just come out of this whole thing completely unscathed? Because I would call that unscathed. Like that's basically untouched. So I'm really trying to see what I think automotive gets wrecked next year anyway. But what's the I mean, Apple. It's funny because Apple's making the Apple car. Did you see the prototype or the drawing? I thought that actually looked pretty neat, but I don't think that's anything to do with it. I'm just curious what's the excuse? The iPhone factory shut down. So I don't know. Watch it. Those two just have my attention right now. But I think we get ready for the next leg down, which will lead. Crypto is an asset risk on asset class right now. So I'm curious how crypto reacts to this because if we get the next leg down in the markets, I assume crypto would follow suit. But I kind of think the only people left in crypto are the holders. And the only big domino left on there, or the only dominoes left, are the big ones of margin calls. And if it drops any further, the big people with margin calls have big orders to sell. And does Bitcoin does it sell off? Does it trail off, or does it drop off a cliff? Like how quick, if we get that leg down, how quick are we leaving 17 and going to 13 or 12 or 11, wherever you guys think it's going?
Yeah, when I'm looking at Bitcoin right now, so this is a 5-minute chart, guys, on Bitcoin. It really has been interesting because over the last, I would say, 3 months, it hasn't necessarily tracked the S&P 500. So here's the weekly chart on this. Here's the weekly. Now, during September, October, it actually outperformed the S&P. And we go back and look at SPY, for example. Here's your weekly chart on SPYs right here. So you can see that SPY's actually been outperforming. And from a trend perspective, you find the top up here. It hasn't quite yet broken that trend. And now today, obviously, it's going to be more of a down day. But Bitcoin, to me, I think seems as if it's potentially trying to find some sort of bottom, and we just need some sort of capitulatory moment. And to your point, Don, I think that we see some sort of crazy major sell-off to get to that 13,000. Could it be that the Fed comes in and surprises everybody who's expecting a 50-point rate hike this month, and we get a 75-point rate hike again from the Fed? I think that could certainly do it. So looking at this, if I was looking at charts, I think I'd probably actually feel a little bit better about Bitcoin's chart rather than the SPY that just came up to the top of this trend and got rejected yet again.
Ouch.
Yeah. And I gotta say, I'm starting to bring up capitulation again because it almost looked like maybe we would get by without actually seeing that. Just kind of more of a bear market, lower lows, lower highs kind of trend down play.
I don't think we do at this point. I don't think we do.
I think we do. I think the finale is around the corner.
Yeah, but that you don't think that is prompted by some sort of surprise event that just creates a flush?
Oh, wait, you're saying you do think we see capitulation?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I thought so. For some reason, I was thinking you said you don't.
Oh no,
no, yeah. I think we do. I think we're gonna find out everyone's choke point. I think everyone's tested right now, and if they see one more, they might just think this is it. I'm done. I'll get back in later. And then that's even that's usually when everybody sells, times the market wrong, and just fuels the time in versus timing, because they'll ride it all the way to the bottom and then sell at capitulation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say is that Bitcoin seems as if this is your weekly chart on Bitcoin. It is a little bit more disorganized than something like a SPY. I mean, you can clearly see that this is in a downtrend, and it's actually really organized downtrend. So you could play that to your strengths if you're a trader such as Don, and actually know when to go short on this, or when to go long when the trend changes. But right now, there's no sunshine and rainbows yet. It's still thunderstorms and rain clouds. So I think that this is going to continue to downtrend. Bitcoin, like I said, it kind of seems as if it's potentially found a bottom, and I think all we're waiting for is some sort of capitulation where you see this just kind of like quickly sell down to maybe that $13,000 area and then bounce back. That's where I would probably be buying this up with both hands if it were me.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
What you're pointing out is, look at the activity. That's why I say there's everyone that's in Bitcoin now is probably a smaller account, and they're just holding right now. They're calling it a crypto winter. They're talking about, like you guys. Oh, I'm getting my stripes this time. I've seen a crypto winter. It's all everything the crypto nerds say. That's who's in Bitcoin still right now. Traders aren't in it because it's just been sideways forever. There's no excitement. There's no volatility. There's nothing inviting you to trade Bitcoin. That's why I do think I'm so set on this, that all we have left, whether it happens or not, is the big boys getting a margin call, or Bitcoin just stays dormant like this for a little bit until we can finally get risk on again and start buying things.
Yeah, I agree. Mm-hmm. I agree. So thanks for that update, Don. We're going to be talking about a couple other things this morning. You guys might have seen the title of today's show, and that has everything to do with SBF showing up to Congress. I didn't put a poll up, Brandon. Maybe I can ask you to do this. If we could put a poll, getting everybody's reaction as to whether or not he's going to show up to this hearing. He says he is, but
he has to.
He doesn't have to.
Showing up and saying 14 times isn't the same thing.
Yeah, but listen, if he doesn't show up now, he's getting subpoenaed and he will have to show up to the next one. So, and what kind of image does that? If he doesn't show up now, he's going to get screwed, and he knows that. So he has to. This is as has to as ever, because it's voluntary. But if he doesn't, the next one's not voluntary, and then they know you didn't show up to court. That's not a good look, and he can't afford a single bad look at all right now.
I don't know. I think he's got friends in high places, and he can afford whatever he wants.
Yeah, I agree.
I won't argue that one.
Nancy Pelosi's like, come over to my house.
My husband wants to talk to you.
Husband.
Yeah.
All
right.
Before we retire, should we buy FTX?
Right. So today's WTF news of the day, guys, is a very interesting. Let me stop this. So there was a guy that basically asked the police to come arrest him today.
I see on TikTok all the time.
Yeah, so it is this guy right here is Christopher Spalding. Yeah. This is a Georgia man, not a Florida man. It's close enough, I guess. He was arrested this week after he asked the sheriff's department on Facebook why he wasn't on its most wanted list. So this is here's the post, by the way. So the post is he says, how about me? So you can see that the city of Rockdale put up a list of most wanted fugitives. Christopher Spalding just says, how about me? And it says, by not being on the list does not mean your fugitive unit is not looking for you if you haven't have an active warrant, said the police. Turns out they ended up finding him, and now he's in jail.
How stupid are you? Like, you didn't make the most wanted list? Like,
it was like you're sad that you weren't
yeah, what do these other guys have? Armed robbery. What is it? aggravated assault, aggravated assault and burglary, kidnapping. What did this guy even do? What's his charges? What did he steal a Georgia hat from Walmart? Like
So
what?
the department actually responded to his comment and said that you have two warrants and we are on the way.
Oh my gosh, this guy's. This is almost reminds me. So I had there's a mansion out here where I live, so a lot of realtors were there because it's about to go for sale. It was an abandoned mansion, and this
Yeah.
thing got vandalized. Kids were hanging out there, and I've never been one to tell the police or anything, but I swear I was this close because on my Facebook post where I'm there at this mansion, someone said, "Oh hey, I used to spray paint inside that house." I was like, "Art, so you're stupid is what you're telling me?" like they're still looking for the people that vandalized this house and everything, and they're just chiming in on my Facebook post, telling on themselves. Like I wanted to just tag the police and say, "Here they are." Like,
Anything you say can and could be used against you.
yeah, and if you're that dumb, then there you have it.
It will be used against you.
Well, in this case, you don't know that it will. If you're SBF, then you just waddle away.
Yeah, it depends. If everyone in the courtroom has collected millions from you, that's millions with an S. I think you're probably all right, unless they're just done with you and they don't want to give their millions back. Then they'd burn you.
You've shined all the right doorknobs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Jesus. Okay.
Ew.
So
No dry snitching.
that's your WTF news of the day, guys. I'm exhausted. If you guys are wondering why I don't sound my normal self, it's because I had to take Jaime to the airport at 4:30 this morning
On a secret mission.
on a secret mission. Yeah. So
Now.
I'm still trying to hang with you guys though. So let's get on to the SPF news. So God, there's so much.
Hey, just so I don't want to interrupt, I'm gonna keep watching my phone, but I do gotta head out. Yeah. So
good.
See everyone in the next video.
All right, see you, bro. So moving on to this. So SPF, Brandon. Actually, does this view actually work for us? Ooh,
It could if I move, and I will because I care.
I feel like that's better. Now it's better without
Yeah.
Don.
Yeah, get the hell out of here. Your audio sucks.
All right. So, Brandon, I wanted to talk to you about the SPF news. So it seemed as if the drama was starting to unfold in that Congress was almost going to be forced to subpoena SPF because he had ignored the request for him to attend the hearing that will be aired
one.
on the 13th, which will be next Tuesday. And so he put out a tweet. Someone's kind of like, it was actually 2 hours ago. 2 hours ago, he put out a tweet that says that he will actually be there. And it was the same bullshit response he's been giving everybody else, trying to play dumb. I didn't know any of this was happening. It says, I still do not have access to much of my data, which whatever. Yes, you do. Professional or personal. I mean, where did it go? How is it missing? For one, he says, so there's a limit to what I'll be able to say, and I won't be able as helpful as I'd like, but the committee still thinks it would be useful. I'm willing to testify on 13th.
Yeah, I think he's saying he's no longer acting in his chair role for FTX. And so it's like, hypothetically, he can't get into his FTX email, that type of thing. I think that's what he's saying. He doesn't have first-party access into the system. Of course, we're skeptical that this is a dog and pony show.
Yes.
And that he's just, being the sweaty nerd fall guy. And if that's the case, I mean, it smells like it, right? I think it's really interesting the work CoffeeZilla specifically was doing, just popping up onto Twitter Spaces and asking him really calculated, thought out questions and trying to basically pin him into a logical decision to have to kind of rat on himself or just waddle away, right?
Yeah, actually, I have that footage. If you'd like me to share that when you're finishing your thought.
Yeah. So my simple point here is that he absolutely, verifiably, in a court of law, as FTX, as the head of FTX, it's your house, get your house in order, kind of thing.
Yeah.
He absolutely treated people's funds against policy. His policy stated that if people are just putting their money into FTX, like let's say just over the counter, you're just buying, spot Bitcoin and holding it in a wallet there. You shouldn't be under the same policies as margin trading. You shouldn't be under the same policies as anybody with lending, these other extraneous products that they have. And yet your money was not treated accordingly. According to the policy, it states that they don't have rights over your funds, and yet he was treating it as fungible, meaning it doesn't matter whether it's this dollar or this dollar or this dollar, it's all $1 and you get whichever one I pick because they're all the same.
Yes.
And so they were basically washing funds, and so it is misappropriation of funds, which is absolutely going to get his little weenie cut into 4 pieces. So.
It's so funny. This last comment to the Maxine Waters response is, I thought of myself as a model CEO who wouldn't become lazy or disconnected, which made it that much more destructive when I did, which just kind of, to me, speaks to the fact that he knows exactly what's happening. And let's go ahead and
cute.
Yeah, let's go ahead and just watch the response to CoffeeZilla's question here.
So good.
I think, and again, I'm just taking a stab here, but I think what happened is that if you look at especially a lot of the withdrawals that happened, those withdrawals were not necessarily only coming from people who never used margin trading or futures or staking or anything else. Those weren't just withdrawals from people who were keeping one-to-one backed or were sort of just keeping them as pure spot balances. And it was omnibus wallets, between the various categories. And so I think that the answer to your question is that a number of those assets were withdrawn by people who had balances on the exchange, potentially in the few days prior to the collapse. And if you wanted to think about it this way, it could be that that happened, and then when the collapse sort of completed, that effectively meant that there was, if you wanted to put it this way, fungibility created during those withdrawals between assets for people who had and had not been using.
But that means that there is no separation of funds. If there's fungibility between 2 different buckets of credit, there are no buckets. It's just one bucket. Everyone's taking out of the bucket, which means substantially anyone who had your terms of service with digital assets wasn't actually subject to that terms of service. They were subject to the same terms of service of your margin trading, right? Which is your more risky product. So you subjected everyone to the higher risk product because fundamentally, when it came down to it, you're saying there's fungibility. It's $1 here, $1 there. Everyone can take out $1 as fast as they want. Don't you see that as like defrauding your customers, the people who trusted you to just say, hey, this is not going to go anywhere except for we're not investing your assets. If I can exchange 1-to-1 and I'm the one who put risky stuff on with risky assets with risky terms of service, I can take the money that someone who didn't sign up to those same risky terms didn't agree to. Isn't that fraud?
Finish him.
So I'm specifically talking about what happened in the days immediately.
All right, so we get the point here.
That's
so
a Mortal Kombat.
So yeah, I mean, I think we look at this. I think we're just going to see more of this in Congress, and actually, I think it's going to be more of a shit show. The questions, and that's why I actually want to try to see who we can have on the show. I'm still trying to, and guys, for those of you watching, if you know anybody, if you yourself are a lawyer, especially in the financial field, that can give us insight to some of the questions that are being asked and the answers that SBF is giving on Tuesday. We'd love to have you guys on our show. Even if it's just for a small amount of time, we would be certainly grateful for that. But, my concern about him going on to Congress is that because he got into bed with so many politicians, they're just going to softball him, and they're really not going to grill him in the way that we've seen the interrogations that have happened on Twitter Spaces.
Yep. This is a dog and pony.
Yeah.
I have extremely high confidence that this is completely for show. This is according to plan. This is all part of their reason for letting FTX flop like it did. Because people with this much money are sophisticated. They aren't unsophisticated, and they know based on AI models that they've ran.
Yeah.
Thousands of simulations more likely than not, how people will behave if you do certain things, because they have basically stimulus input, tests. So we know for sure if you give someone some identity politics input that they then really adhere to and feel a sense of community around, and then you attack that, even if it's not legitimately attacking it, they'll lose their mind and they'll betray their entire family. Like we know people are literally that wired. So I suppose knowing people are that wired, I think we're certainly seeing that from like a corporate, social media view. Like, hold up, like if you're actually up against the ropes, legally speaking,
yeah,
why would you go on Twitter Spaces and just start shooting this shit with the random general public? Like that's any lawyer would duct tape your mouth and tie you to a chair. Like this is clearly an intentional thing where they're trying to basically make him a fall guy, only to conveniently dispose of him, a la whacked style, or
yes,
or they're trying to put him in a witness protection. I can't tell you what, but either way, they're clearly trying to make him look as ugly as possible, just to say, look over here. Actually, this is happening. Don't look over here. That's what it feels like to me. I mean, it's Conspiracy Friday, so I feel free to say what I think. So.
No, I think so too, and I think that it'll be interesting to see if there are actually anybody on the Democratic side that are going to hold him accountable. Mm-hmm. And I don't foresee Maxine Waters doing that. We've seen her blowing kisses to that motherfucker. So
butterfly kisses.
Right. So I don't think that she's gonna do it, but I would be interested to see who on that side is actually gonna stand up and like call this shit for what it is.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And that being said, like I do think everyone has the capacity to be an individual, regardless of what they go under, right? Like, yes. Just for example, like you had like Dr. Ron Paul at one point go under Republican. He certainly doesn't fit form to the majority of the Republican Party, though, right? He's against getting involved in foreign affairs. He's against financially supporting regime change. And the majority of the Republican Party has been doing those types of things, right?
Yeah.
Like the majority of the things that our politicians, our elected officials have had the audacity to call wars have never been constitutionally declared war through Congress. So I suppose, tree bites fruit, right?
Yeah.
But even within like the Democrats, I think you do have some people who don't quite fit form. You have like people like Tulsi Gabbard, for example, who don't quite fit the exact model of what the general agenda is going. And, consequentially, you do see a lot of Democrats pushing her out and saying she's not really one of us. She's not legitimate, that kind of thing, just because she's reaching across the aisle. And then I certainly wouldn't say that Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders are the same type of Democrat. So,
right.
And I wouldn't put AOC in that same category either. So I don't think it's fair to just say your team blue and your team red. I think there's more nuance to it than that. And apparently we got some spam up in here. Don't click on that. Don't click on that.
I'm trying to get.
Do not like her hot photo. Don't click on that.
Jesus Christ. Okay, so yeah, no, I agree. So guys, we're going to be live for that Sam Bankman-Fried testimony. If you guys want to go follow us, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button, the like button, and that notification bell to get notified when we do go live. And if you want to continue the conversation, make sure you go check out our Discord. The link is in the description as well. We'd love to have you guys in there. It's absolutely free to join. And so go be a part of our community and help support us that way.
Yep. And thank you for your support.
The prawn bots for listening.
Pornography.
Okay, so sticking with politics and conspiracies, Brandon, I don't know if you saw this, but Bitcoin miners may be forced to report energy use in proposed bill from Congress. The U.S. crypto miners will be forced to disclose greenhouse gas emissions under a new bill, adding pressure to a fast-growing industry criticized for its heavy toll on the environment and power grid. This is according to Yahoo Finance. The legislation introduced by Democratic Senator Edward Markey will require crypto miners using more than 5 megawatts of electricity, a threshold that most Bitcoin mining companies would pass to report emissions and the source of power, according to a copy of the bill shared with Bloomberg News. The U.S. Environment Protection Agency would, the EPA, would conduct a study in the impact of existing and planned digital mining operations, including the level of stress on the energy grid and fossil fuel usage, offer any measures state regulators can take to reduce their energy demand. This kind of feels like absolute bullshit, in my opinion. Why aren't we taxing anybody else for the amount of energy they're using for their business?
Yeah.
Their company?
Well, let's speak to this. I mean, you said the legislation introduced by Democratic Senator Edward Markey. So first and foremost, there's a green agenda bit there, and this has nothing to do with Bitcoin mining in and of itself. This is, in my opinion, just virtue signaling, saying we're going after the big bad, pollution wolf. And like me and my wife are the type of people to literally go around the neighborhood and pick up trash. Like, trust me, I care about the environment, right? But I also care about numbers and statistics, and I can tell you that Bitcoin is not the problem to it's not the main problem for our pollution problem, right? We're not getting terrible air quality because of people mining Bitcoin. That's that's not the underlying issue. The underlying issue is probably that people should be working from home more. I think that would cut down on a ton of airborne, auto emissions. And mind you, I'm not talking about global warming. I'm talking about air quality. They're different conversations.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. So this is one, virtue signaling, two, trying to get more control over the money supply, because if you can at least create FUD around mining, then maybe you'll create FUD around Bitcoin, because they can't control Bitcoin. I think it's important to note that there's a lot of people who are used to having like, hey Fed, go ahead and crank up, the introduction of supply of USD. Yeah, sure, no problem. And then inflation pops off, right? Cryptocurrency doesn't play that game, depending on which coin you're talking about. And Bitcoin is locked to 21 million, and people are even losing their keys. So there's probably, far less than 21 million ever going to be in circulation.
Kobug brings up a great point here too. It says, will people driving electric cars have to do the same? Will these people proposing these bills being charged for the carbon footprint their giant houses and private jet flights provide? So yeah, I mean, I think that this is like, in Maryland, we had a rain tax for the amount of runoff that we had on our properties, and it's just some more dumb shit, and they're using Bitcoin as a way to do it, but it just doesn't make any sense when you compare it to how many other companies. I mean, how much energy does Elon Musk actually use to produce cars, or Ford or GM? And nobody gives a shit about that. But for some reason, Bitcoin or mining in general is more of a culprit than those other companies, and it's not being taxed fairly if that's the act that ends up going through. I'm also curious if Edward Markey has received any funds from SBF.
We should do research into that guy, see how far the bunny trail goes.
I don't know if that's public information, but I just actually started to think about this, right? Like, is it public information on the recipients of donations? Like, is there a public ledger of that? And how
if they're official donations, then yeah, political and charitable donations are public. Mm-hmm.
I would imagine so. I just didn't know that off the top of my head. So I'd be curious to see before we react to the testimony. I'd be curious to see if we could get a list of donor recipients and what they have to say, and how what kind of questions they're going to ask SBF too.
I'm totally going to do that homework. It's funny. This article you mentioned, it says about 80% of global currency mining is fueled by coal and natural gas. Yeah, you know why? Because renewable energy sources are not prevalent. They're in R&D phase right now. They're not in general production phase. And so every technology goes through this type of phase where you'll say, hey, I have a hypothesis. Let's see if it works. You'll test it, get a proof of concept, and get a minimum viable product. Hey, look, it works. And then we'll test it at scale. And that's called a pilot. You go over a bunch of sample sets and say, hey, does this work for you here? And if it does work there, great. Then we roll it into production. So we're at this point where we're like, hey, hypothesis, solar could be really useful. And so there's R&D going on right now to try to figure out how we can most efficiently make solar panels that can actually give a meaningful amount of electrical output without a huge amount of off-put energy spent to even create them and to recycle them at the end of their life. So we have to look at the whole life cycle of these products, for one. Also, if people really care about the environment and they really care about clean energy, nuclear has to be part of this conversation. I hate to break it to you.
I was just about to say that.
Nuclear has to be part of the conversation. The reason it has to be part of the conversation is the stuff in Chernobyl happened because of some clear oversights. We are now in a point in our understanding of the technology that we have multiple saving mechanisms that prevent that type of thing from happening. Multiple. And so we're now in this, it just needs to be highly, highly audited, for one. Two, as long as it's highly audited and by independent third parties, not by government entities. I think it really needs to be like an accountability triangle, right? But if we do get into the posture where we do have energy production being captured into electricity via nuclear power, and then our battery tech stops relying on things like lithium, which are rare earth minerals, and instead we have a new technology, people should start researching it. If you watch Tim Pool, you'll certainly hear Ian talk about it often, but we have graphene and boraphenine. Graphene is a 1 molecule thick carbon lace, so it's a hex of carbon perfectly intersecting. It's rather stronger than diamonds because it's a perfect carbon arrangement. It's flexible. It's also a superconductor, so it could be used for really, really efficient batteries, and it's made of carbon. Is carbon a rare element on the planet? No, it's not. It's
No.
prevalent. So I really think that, like, if we want to have this conversation in an intellectually honest way about, like, let's be clean, let's mine Bitcoin responsibly, all of that, and to try to say that coal is not a reasonable approach. Okay, let's look at other approaches. Let's look into nuclear honestly, and let's look into carbon-based and boring-based battery tech. Let's do that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. I think you look at, especially nuclear. I mean, Elon's talked about how safe nuclear actually is, and I'm wondering. So, for those of you who don't know, Elon bought a solar company. Who was it? Just escaped me. But I believe his brother was running it, and it failed, so he ended up buying it and starting to turn it around. But I wonder if he's going to take that company and still have solar offered, but really start to look into nuclear even more, because it's very efficient too. And to your point, with all the fail safes in place, it's also very safe when done properly.
Yeah. There's another tech that I do want to bring up too. There's experiments right now that are proving they can basically put nuclear reactions inside of diamonds. And so if you can actually encase a nuclear reaction inside of a diamond, it off-puts less radiation emissions than the human body does. And so it's perfectly safe, but the voltage given off by it would be available for lifetimes, right? So the whole idea is, like, you could have a really high-end watch with a nuclear battery, and you could pass it on to your great grandkid, and the battery would still be good. Like, that's super cool.
Wow.
And so I think we're going to see a huge crank in wearable biotech with those nuclear batteries being a power source that's just reliable, and then two, graphene or borafine being a flexible cloth-like material that's super, super strong and a
Yeah.
superconductor.
That's kind of mind blowing, actually. Yeah, guys, let us know what you think about this in the comments below. And if you're watching this later, go check us out on Discord as well. Link is in the description. It's free to join. We just would like to continue the conversation with you guys there. So I'm going to cut it a little bit short today. We didn't have a whole lot of topics to discuss, and it's always a little bit more challenging when we don't have everybody here. But we're pushing through anyway. But that's going to do it for today's show, guys. We're going to be back on Monday at 9 a.m. Eastern time to talk about whatever happens over the weekend. And then we're going to be live again on Tuesday to cover the entire testimony of the Sam Bankman-Fried debacle and what's going to be coming of that. So, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. We do have birthdays, of course. We can't leave without birthdays. So we have Judi Dench is 87 years old. I feel like Judi Dench is kind of like the UK version of Betty White.
Betty White's so lovely.
Yeah, so is Judi Dench, though.
Yes.
She's actually quite funny. Lori Greiner. Do you know who Lori Greiner is? Shark Tank.
Yes.
She's 52, and Felicity Huffman is 59. By the way, I have like a little crush on Felicity Huffman. I know that she's older. She's much older.
You know, I don't think that stops you from thinking someone's lovely, right?
Yeah, lovely is what I'll go with.
Yeah, lovely is the word. Lovely.
And then we finally have Renee Perez, who's 38. All-American Girls is what she's known for, as well as Cleaning the Slut Out of Me.
Wow.
Pussy Palooza. This is why they call me a freak. And Studios 69. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in.
I could smell those titles.
We certainly appreciate it, and we'll see you all Monday. Until then, keep calm and huddle on. Bye.
Wow.